Hello and welcome to Boring Dad Gaming, where today we're going to be looking at another class within Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access, and today we're going to be taking a look at Sorcerer. Sorcerer is quite a fun class. It does feel quite different to Wizard. Wizard's perhaps more of a utility type spellcaster who can do damage, whereas the Sorcerer just feels set up just to absolutely melt stuff, but perhaps doesn't have, the same utility outside of combat. But it's good fun, good choice. I recommend it. We're going to start off with Origin, and we're going to be very high on Charisma and Dexterity, so choosing a background that makes use of those stats is probably desirable. I've gone with Charlatan here because we get a conversation boost with Deception, and we also have Sleight of Hand proficiency, which links into Dex. You could probably make an argument for something like Guild Artisan. We've got a Wisdom, Insight proficiency, and Persuasion. But yeah, I think either one of those is a solid choice. I'm just going to stick with Charlatan here. In terms of race, there's one clear standout choice, and that's Wood Half-Elf. It comes with Charisma +2 built in, which is going to be our main damage dealings stat through spells and such. We've also got quite high Dexterity, which we can add +1 to that with Half-Elf, and Constitution as well, just to give us a bit more of an HP boost. So high Dex, high Con, high Charisma there. We also get a bit of a speed boost here with our sub-race traits. We've got movement speed up from a standard of 9, I think it is, with other, classes. And Mask of the Wild, so we're a bit proficient in stealth as well, which is all right. Other classes I could probably make an argument for would include Tiefling, because you've got the Charisma +2. You also get Hellish Resistance, so you only take half damage from fire, which is actually quite nice. It does give us a +1 boost to intelligence, which is a little bit of a dump stat for us. That's not ideal. You've also got Drow, so you have Charisma and Dexterity again, but this time it's 2 Dexterity and 1 Charisma, which is okay, but I prefer to get the extra Charisma with the Half-Elf. Just make sure that's still as it was. Nope, it's reverted, so let's just put that back. There we go. So that's our race. Appearance isn't particularly important. I'm going to change that hair, though. I'm not a big fan of that hairstyle. That's good. Okay, quickly pop into class. We're down as Sorcerer. 2 choices here. You have Wild Magic, which is okay. I don't like it because it's unpredictable. Like you can try and cast one spell and it just has unpredictable effects. But what we're really going for here is we're going to do a draconic bloodline build. So let's first take a look at cantrips. There's a couple of standout choices here. Firebolt is pretty much going to be our go-to damage dealing spells, particularly in the early levels. It's a cantrip. We can cast it as often as we like. Light I'm going to take out. Chill Touch. That's an interesting one. It is 18 meters. It is a ranged attack. It's only 1d8, which is less than our Firebolt. It does mean that enemies hit by it can't heal, and undead also get disadvantage on attack rolls, so that's quite nice. There are undead enemies within the early access. Mage Hand's interesting. I can think of a few uses for that outside of combat, but let's just untick that here, and perhaps we'll take Ray of Frost. Because with this, it again does less damage as a d8, but you can reduce the target's movement speed, like keep it away from you for a bit longer, so that feels quite good. We actually have another space, so perhaps we will add in the Mage Hand again there. Yeah, that looks good. In terms of spells, Chromatic Orb is good, because you can actually deal more damage with this. You see there it says it deals 3d8 thunder damage, or 2d8 other things, and it also can inflict AoE effects for enemies that are grouped together. So yeah, it's just a solid choice. Thunderwave is good, but I'm probably going to swap it out for Magic Missile at this level. Unlike other ranged spells, Magic Missile doesn't have a chance to hit. It's always 100% to hit, providing you've got the necessary line of sight on your enemies. So that feels like a good solid choice for when you absolutely have to do damage. Maybe a dangerous enemy's down to half a dozen hit points or something, and you really need to ensure that he dies before he goes next. That's a good choice. So I'm looking down at the dragon ancestry things. So it looks like it's doubled up because you've got the fire here and the fire here and the acid and acid. And what this really is within the D&D lore, these colours, these red, black, blue, white and green, they're what's called chromatic dragons, and they tend to be evil dragons within the game. Whereas the sort of corresponding gold, silver, bronze, copper and brass are known as metallic dragons, which tend to be good aligned. So you could perhaps roleplay this. If we just look at one highlighted here. So it says, fire is the damage type associated with your dragon ancestor, and it specifies at level 6, spells that deal fire damage are more powerful and you can become resistant to fire damage. Obviously, the early access has a level cap of 4, so we won't be reaching that level. So in the full release, you'd probably spend a bit more time thinking about, what spells you'll be taking later on and taking the type that will correspond to doing more damage with those spells. But for the early access, it's perhaps a bit more of a role-playing choice, or from a practical standpoint, they bring different spells linked with. So if we just scroll down here, we can see that the red dragon comes with Burning Hands, whereas the brass fire dragon comes with Sleep. Similarly, black acid comes with Grease, copper acid comes with Tasha's Hideous Laughter, blue comes with Witch Bolt, bronze comes with Fog, silver has Featherfall, white has Armour of Agathes, green has Ray of Sickness, and... okay. So there isn't a corresponding metallic foregreen. So we've got the gold fire here, and he does. They do disguise self as kind of the spell they come with. Everything else is basically the same at this point, especially within the early access. So really, it comes down to which spell you want to have included. And for me, I think there's a couple I would choose to take. I think Burning Hands, although it's a closer range spell, 5 meters, it's still got a decent range. I mean, bear in mind, melee enemies will be running at you. So, a bit of close range is not the worst thing in the world, because if you're threatened and there's an enemy within your melee sphere and would attack you with opportunity, but also giving disadvantage on your range spells, something like Burning Hands wouldn't have that malice against it. So, you can reliably do that and inflict up to 18 fire damage on them. And it still does damage on successful saves as well, so I quite like that. I think the other choice would be on the brass, because Sleep is a very solid take as well, just taking an enemy or a couple of enemies out of the fight and wait, just leave them until you're ready to deal with them. But I'm going to go with the red fire for the Burning Hands. But as I said, it's a lot of that is down to personal choice. I don't feel like you have to do the same thing as me there. Just pick the spell that you think you get most use out of. Quickly look at the class features. So we get some saving throw proficiencies, charisma and constitution. The weapon proficiencies are by the by, really, because with a sorcerer we're not going to be using weapons. Really, it's something to hold, but really our damage is coming from spells pretty much 99.9% of the time. We do get draconic resilience hit points, so our maximum hit points increase by 1 for each level. And the resilience means that our base armor class is 13. So with the dex that we've taken, we're going to get +3 added to that as well. So we should be going into the game wearing no armor, but with an armor class of 16, which is, pretty good. So there we go. That's on the class. In terms of skills, we're going to have very low intelligence. So just untick anything that's sort of intelligence based. Our wisdom's not bad. Our charisma is obviously high. So yeah, I've gone with persuasion and intimidation. We've already got deception granted by charlatan, so we're now proficient in all of the conversation skills. I could see an argument for insight though, but for me that's what I'm going with, linked to our charisma stat. And a quick look at the abilities I've chosen. We've minimised our strength, we've maxed out our charisma. Intelligence, again, we've taken down as low as we can. I've gone with 16 dexterity for the armor class, so that's max. I've added a bit more survivability with the 14 constitution, and I've just taken it up to 12 for wisdom, just for things like perception checks and the like there. But I think you could certainly maybe, if you wanted to max out constitution, I guess you could, but that's what I'm going with. So when we come back, we'll level this character up to levels 2, 3 and 4. So here we are at level 2. So What's interesting about the Sorcerer and what differentiates it from the Wizards is that at level 2 you start getting something called sorcery points. And these basically help you to apply modifiers to your spells at the cost of a sorcery point, sometimes 2 sorcery points. That make your spells have different effects, and they're called these class passives. So with Metamagic Careful spell, we could make sure that the spell means that allies automatically succeed against saving throws against that spell. It's not like the Wizard. It doesn't say that allies will take 0 damage. So for instance, if you throw a fireball and it's a careful metamagic fireball, they'd succeed their saving... Well, yeah, they would automatically succeed the saving throw, so they would take half damage, I think, from that fireball. So that's okay. Distant I quite like because, we can not double, but increase the range of our spells by 50%. So, for instance, melee spells, like the Burning Hands we've got, gets a range of 9 meters, which is pretty cool. Extended spell doubles the duration of conditions and surfaces. I'm not so sure about that one. But Twin spell is quite good because you can... spells that only target a single creature, like say our Firebolt, we could target 2 creatures. And yeah, so it says that cantrips would cost a sorcery point as well. So yeah, so we can attack 2 targets with a single target spell, which is pretty good. So we're going to take those 2, Distant and Twinned. In terms of the spell we take at this level, I think what we're going to add is... probably Thunderwave. Now, we're not taking Mage Armor because our sort of basic 16 armor class stat that we've got because of our draconic bloodline means that's unnecessary. So let's take something like Thunderwave. So again, if enemies are getting up close and personal with us, we've got a way of shoving them away while inflicting some damage. So that sounds pretty good. And so we can use, as a bonus action, use 2 sorcery points to open up a spell slot. So that's kind of cool. And there we go. At level 3, we've got a bit more that we could do here. You could actually swap out your meta magic at this point if you didn't like the Twinned or the Distant. So that's good. We have a couple of other choices here. So we have Heightened spell. So targets of spells that require saving throws have disadvantage on their first saving throw. That costs 3 sorcery points. That's quite pricey. But you'd be more likely to, succeed in the spell effects that you were intending. Or Subtle spell. We could cast spells while silenced. I haven't come across any instances within the early access of me being silenced. So that's... I don't know. Perhaps for the early access that's something you don't really think about. But Quicken spell is interesting because we can actually cast 2 spells within a turn using this. It does cost 3 sorcery points, but it means that we can take that spell as a bonus action instead. So we could, cast whatever, a Thunder Wave perhaps. It costs us 3 sorcery points, bear in mind. But then we could cast a Firebolt within the same turn as well, which is kind of cool. We could choose our spell here. I'm actually going to take the Misty Step, which is suggested by default, because that's going to be quite important for making sure that we stay out of harm's way, and can also teleport to higher ground to get advantage on our ranged attacks. That's cool. So we'll leave that there. And here at level 4, we get to choose another cantrip. So let's have a quick look at what we've got here. It wants us to take light. I'm not that inclined to do that, but perhaps something like... Poison Spray is another good choice if something's getting up in your face and you don't want it to. So we'll do that. Now we could take a level 2 spell here. And, I mean, there's different choices, really. And your Draconic Bloodline might feed into this. Like if you're the kind that's going to do more damage to the fire spells, perhaps you'd take Scorching Ray. But what's generally quite a good spell, and I think I took it on my wizard that I made, is this Cloud of Daggers. Because you can put down this AoE cloud, and anything passing through it or spending its turn in there is going to take up to 16 points of slashing damage. And it stays there for 10 turns. It's pretty good, so I'm going to take that. And quick look at our feats. So what we're going to do here, we're going to max out our Charisma. It's already selected there by default. So that's looking pretty good. And the other point is really, where you want to put it, I suppose. I'd be inclined to bump up dexterity, perhaps. Something we might increase in the future as well, just to get our armor class going a little bit higher. But equally, you could do Constitution or Wisdom, depending on how you're feeling about it. But the important thing is to get Charisma to 18 there. So when we come back, we're going to see how our Tav, the Sorcerer, gets on in a combat situation. Right, so here we are in a combat situation. We're at the chapel. We've aggroed this group. And yeah, we're going to try and defeat them. We're going first in this fight. And what I'm tempted to do is Misty Step over to this sort of shelf up here, which will give us a height advantage on the group.
Hold it! Not another step.
And what I could actually try and do is just immediately kill this sorcerer, and I think I will do that. So let's have a think. What would be good? We could perhaps Magic Missile. That might be enough to kill her. We could also try and do it as a Quicken spell, which means we could cast something else afterwards. Why can't I... do a distance spell. Why can't okay, I'm guessing it's because we use the Misty Step as our bonus action. That's why I can't do the Quicken spell. So, don't really need either of those. And I think what I'll do is I'm just going to cast a first level Magic Missile at her. And I would think that's not enough to kill her. You roll quite low on that. Well, we'll see what happens. Right, we've got Lae'zel, so I'm just going to bring her up to kind of just get these two stuck there. I'm not going to attack with her. Right, so she shoved us off there. It might just be fair to do the same thing to her. She's only got 2 hit points. But just to show you how this works, let's quicken a Thunder Wave, and we'll teach her to shove us off somewhere. Bye-bye. And she's now gone. We could... Right, so now we're going to help Lae'zel out a little bit, I think. And it might be good if we could get a cloud of daggers going down there. If we could... Oh, it's going to hit Lae'zel as well, by the look of it. We can move a little bit there. Oh, yes. Oh. Why is target out of sight? Okay, let's try something else. Let's do a chromatic orb then. We could cast it a level 2 spell and we can create an acid surface. So let's cast it at this fighter. Yeah, so 10 acid and it's created a bit of an acid surface there. Alright, he's fired an acid arrow at us, which was a little mean, wasn't it? So what can we do to him? We could try a twin spell. So it's telling us these are the spells we could twin with. So maybe a chromatic orb, again, might be a good one. So let's select that. It can only be a level 1, so let's select the Thunder. And we'll send 1 to him. And 1 to him as he's already damaged. 1 missed, 1 got a kill. Okay, I think the archer has to die, doesn't he? So we missed him with our last spell attack. We've got no more sorcery points. We could spend spell slots to gain sorcery points. That's a feature of the class. Yeah, let's use a level 1 spell slot to get a sorcery point back. I think we then cast it ourselves. There we go. So we could do another twin spell. I think that's probably quite a good idea. And we can do it... we could do it with the Firebolt. See how that works out. An 80% chance to hit him. 75 on him. Oh, we crit one. And we did hit the archer. He's down to... he's only half health now. Okay. We've got one level 2 spell slot. If I was to put this cloud of daggers here, I think I could actually hit both of these targets. So let's put that down. And I believe that has killed the archer. Gimbalbok here is still going.
Victory awaits.
I wonder if we're playing as Lae'zel. Let's just try and push him into that cloud of stuff. There he goes. He went through the cloud of daggers and took all the damage, and that was combat over. So there we go.
What now?
And that's and you can cancel the concentration as well to desummon the cloud of daggers once we're finished. So there we go. That's a little look at how the sorcerer class functions within a combat scenario. Sorcery points are a lot of fun. You get those and your spell slots back on a long rest, not a short rest. So that's you know, if you think you're going to go a while between long rests, perhaps it's an idea to, you know, conserve them a bit more. I mean, usually you'd be with a party of 4 rather than a party of 2 here, so you know you wouldn't be having to expend quite as much on one encounter. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a strong class. Obviously, you need a bit of protection when you're playing it, but highly recommended. So I'll leave it there. So thanks very much for watching. If this was useful, if you enjoyed it, then it'd be great if you could hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. That'd be amazing. And I hope to see you next time for another Baldur's Gate 3 class guide video. Bye for now.